Yes, we can. Thank you, Mark.
Let me get going. I'd like to welcome you all to the African Bird Fair. People are joining us from all over South Africa. We've got people joining us from the continent of Africa and even people from all over the world. So I'd like to thank you very much for participating in this year's African Bird Fair. It's really an absolute pleasure to welcome you to this fair. So this is our third consecutive virtual bird fair. The slight difference this year is that we have a hybrid bird fair. So we've got a few activities taking place at Estel House, our head office in Johannesburg, tomorrow. We're very grateful to Swarovski Optic for their support this year. So this is our third consecutive virtual bird fair. And in 2020, with COVID, we decided that there was probably no sense in having an in-person event. In fact, even planning an in-person event in advance of the uncertainties of COVID. So we held a virtual African Bird Fair, and it was a tremendous success. We had thousands of people join us from around the world. We've got on top of the technologies that enable us to present a virtual event like this. And because COVID was still around last year, we repeated it again. We had another virtual event. And this year, once again, we have our third virtual bird fair. We've learned so much about hosting virtual webinars through our conservation conversations with BirdLife South Africa webinar series. And these have been a tremendous success. I've just come back from the Kruger National Park. In fact, I arrived in Johannesburg just a couple of hours ago. And when I entered Kruger on Sunday, I was greeted at open gate by about 8 ladies who were standing at my branded car, and all they wanted to tell me was how much they've enjoyed conservation conversations and the fact that it was the highlight of COVID for them. So we do believe that we are experts at holding virtual events. This is not the only bird fair taking place during this month. The Global Bird Fair took place in the UK in the last week, and I believe it was quite a success. Spoke to Adam Riley from Rock Jumper earlier today, and he told me that he was there and he felt it was a success. And we're very grateful to the organizers of the Global Bird Fair because some of the proceeds from this important event, which is really the successor to the British Bird Fair, go to BirdLife International. And it's also worth mentioning, as many of you will know, that we're a very proud partner of BirdLife International. We're the country partner in South Africa. We've been a partner since 1996, and there are about 120 BirdLife partners around the world, and we work together to conserve the world's birds. And so the proceeds from the recent event in the UK will go to conserving the world's birds. So probably relevant to look at what the aims of the African Bird Fair are. And for many years, we held in-person events, initially at the Johannesburg Zoo, and then latterly at the Walter Sisulu National Botanical Gardens. The African Bird Fair has multiple aims. One of them is to have presentations for people to learn about birds and about bird conservation, learn about what BirdLife South Africa and other organizations do. Also to have exhibitors so people can come and display their wares, have some of the bird clubs come and display their wares. But in addition, to raise money for our bird conservation work. We have an incredibly onerous responsibility of conserving South Africa's birds. And as BirdLife South Africa expands its reach regionally, we have the responsibility of engaging with our partners across Africa and with the BirdLife Secretariat in Nairobi to conserve the region's birds. So there are multiple aims of the African Bird Fair, and I believe that we are able to achieve these aims. There's no other regional bird fair in Africa. There's the British Bird Fair, there are bird fairs in the US, and there's bird fairs in some European countries, but this is the African Bird Fair. We're very grateful to have the support and participation of the BirdLife partners in Africa as well. There are representatives from the BirdLife partners at this year's bird fair. So these events do not happen on their own. They take a lot of work. And when I say a lot of work, I'm not understating the amount of work that is involved in organizing an event like this. We have an organizing team, an organizing committee that have worked tirelessly to pull this event off. And you'll see the names are mentioned there. I'm not going to single anyone out, but there are a few people that have really gone way beyond the call of duty during the past, not only weeks, but months. And I'm at Isdell House, our head office in Johannesburg at the moment, and I can see a number of very, very tired BirdLife South Africa staff who've been intimately involved in the organization of this event. Other BirdLife South Africa staff were also involved, and the Isdell House staff will be assisting with the in-person event tomorrow. We're also grateful for the support of Participate Technologies, who provide the platform that we use to reach people around the world. And we have many speakers and workshop presenters. You can go to the program and see the incredible number and diversity of presenters we have. And it's just worth mentioning a few of those. Jonathan Franzen, who Jenny Cruz-Williams and I will be interviewing a little bit later this evening. Deo Sinubi, who will be talking about intra-Africa migration and woodland kingfishers in particular. And there's 3 workshops by Elder Baruti, Lance Robinson, and Melissa Whitecross. And those should also be intended. Encourage you to attend those. And also just thank David Frost, who's giving the welcome address in a moment, Jenny Cruz-Williams, and Sandiswa Kula. Sandiswa is very well known to bird watchers, particularly those who are on social media, and she's come up all the way from the Eastern Cape to join us in Johannesburg for a few days. We have Natasha assisting with the virtual hosting, and really, really importantly, we have a number of sponsors, exhibitors, and auction item donors. Now, as I mentioned, one of the aims is raising funding for our organization and our conservation work, and we wouldn't be able to achieve an event like this without the support of these very, very generous people and organizations, and there are a number of them. And then we involve Wild Earth. Again, I will be meeting with the CEO of Wild Earth in the UK in a couple of weeks, and I'm really looking forward to that. And I'd like to thank David, Paul, and Wesley, who are assisting Wild Earth on the vehicles, fireside chats during their live broadcasts to people around the world. So that, in fact, working with Wild Earth has increased our reach. And then, of course, the participants. There's many people, hundreds of people, probably thousands will join the Virtual African Bird Fair this weekend. And we'd like to thank all of our participants for supporting BirdLife South Africa and believing in our organization and providing the assistance and support which enables us to do our conservation work. So these are some of our sponsors, our headline sponsors, Swarovski Optic. We have platinum, gold, and silver sponsors. And these organizations, these companies, have been incredibly generous in providing financial support, which has enabled us to host this event and also to realize a profit, a nice profit, which of course gets plowed back into our organization and the important work that we do. We have an online auction. The auction did really well last year. We've actually got a larger number of auction items which are up for auction this year. And well done to Claire Neal, our events manager, who's managed to secure many of these auction items. And I'd like to encourage you all to go to our platform, look at click on the auction tab, look what's up for auction, and bid on some of these items. I think you'll get some of them for a real steal. But just to really thank all of the people and companies and organizations who have donated auction items for this year's African Bird Fair. So just changing tack a little bit, I often get asked the question, is there a future for South Africa's birds and Africa's birds? I think so. We're optimistic. We're addressing the threats, lots being done, and we are seeing benefits. The Albatross Task Force, as one example, we're seeing how fewer albatrosses are now caught in the trawl fishing nets and in the longliners. So there are many, many positive achievements, I think, that have been made by BirdLife South Africa and other organizations in South Africa, but also the BirdLife partners across the continent. But very importantly, no bird has gone extinct in Africa during historical times. There's a number that are critically endangered. There's a number that are kind of creeping closer to the edge of that extinction precipice. It's really important for us to ensure that none of our continent's birds go extinct. I do believe there's a future for our birds, but it's important for organizations like BirdLife South Africa, BirdLife International, and BirdLife partners across the world to be successful and to be supported. And there are many ways in which you can help. I often get asked by people, how can I help? And I say to people in my response, the minimum you can do is just speak positively about our organization and the work we do. But there are other ways in which you can assist. You can become a member of BirdLife South Africa. With more members, we have a louder voice. And there are many membership benefits. One of them is our members receive 6 issues per year of our absolutely fantastic African BirdLife magazine, regarded by many as the world's top bird and birding magazine. It is absolutely brilliant. And the latest issue with the secretary bird on the cover is particularly nice. And while we were in Kruger this week, on leave this week on a wilderness trail, I had a copy along and I passed it around the table over dinner, showed our friends and the magazine, and they paged through it, and they were really complimentary about what a fantastic visual issue this is. It is a superb magazine, and Eve and Bryony and the rest of the team need to be commended on producing such a wonderful magazine. We have an annual raffle, jackpot birding. There are only 1,000 tickets available at 500 Rand per ticket, and we've sold more than half those tickets. I'd like to encourage you to go and purchase a ticket. Go to our website, you'll see the link top of our homepage, and go through and purchase a ticket. And through purchasing a ticket, you not only stand a good chance of winning 100,000 Rand or some of the smaller prizes, but importantly, you're contributing to the conservation of South Africa's birds by supporting us through purchasing a ticket or several tickets. Then we have many conservation projects. In fact, we've got a growing number of conservation projects, and these are not only in South Africa, but we're also supporting our friends and colleagues elsewhere in Africa with their work. And you can assist birds and BirdLife South Africa by supporting a conservation project. And if anybody's interested in finding out more about one of our conservation projects and how you can support it, and even small donations go a long way in our endeavors to conserve our countries and the continent's birds. So please go to our websites, page through the different pages, see what we're up to, send an email to info@birdlife.org.za, and express an interest in a project, or tell us about your favorite bird, a bird that you're particularly concerned about, and we will get in contact with you and talk to you about what we're doing to conserve that bird, and we will tell you how you can assist with the conservation work we're doing. Okay, back to the bird fair. There's a lot on the go this evening, and particularly tomorrow. Again, I'd like you to support our silent auction. Let's have bids on all of those auction items. Let's raise a significant amount of money for our conservation work through the silent auction. And also visit the exhibition booths and the sponsors' booths. The exhibitors and the sponsors have donated money to BirdLife South Africa, and they're supportive of our work. I'd like to encourage you to support them by visiting their booths. And if you're encouraged by the company and the merchandise that they sell, please support them by purchasing a pair of binoculars, for example. And we also have a bird search game, which you can read about on the Bird Fair website. Okay, as I mentioned at the beginning, this is not only a virtual event this year, it's also an in-person event. And tomorrow, our wonderful head office in Untitled West Johannesburg will be open. I'd like to encourage you to visit Estel House and come and see some of the exhibitors, the optics companies that will be exhibiting their merchandise, their binoculars, cameras. We have Charles Gregg Jewelers, and we'll be displaying some bronze sculptures, beautiful bird sculptures. We have Elaine's Birding, who'll be selling bird food and bird feeders. Our shop will be open. You'll be able to wander around our garden, not in its prime at the moment because it's midwinter, but you'll be able to wander around the garden. And Tanya Anderson, who is largely responsible, has been responsible for this garden, will be available to take you on a tour of the garden and tell you a bit about indigenous gardening and the success we've had with some of the plants that we've planted at Estel House. As I mentioned, we've just come back from the Kruger National Park, where we did a wilderness trail, and it was really amazing, despite it being winter, to wake up in the morning and hear the dawn chorus, particularly some of the robins that were calling really early in the morning. And it again reminded me of the importance of our work and the fact that future generations should also enjoy that wonderful chorus, that wonderful sound of birds early in the morning. It also once again reminded me of Rachel Carson's book, The Silent Spring, which she wrote 60 years ago. The anniversary of the publication of this book in September will be 60 years. So this book was a milestone for conservation, and I think it was really made us for the first time aware of the harmful pesticides, particularly some of the organochlorides that were being used in North America, and we're having a detrimental effect on particularly the peregrine falcon through eggshell thinning. And the whole thesis of Rachel's book was about, if we continue to use pesticides as we were using then, we will ultimately have a silent spring. We don't want a silent spring, and we don't want a silent dawn, and we need to do all we can to ensure that birds will be around for future generations to enjoy. Chris Packham, the well-known BBC presenter of Autumn Watch and Spring Watch, was one of the presenters at last year's bird fair, and he made a really profound statement, which I put up on the screen for you to see. And really, we cannot fail. We have to be successful in what we do. And Chris feels very adamant that we have to be successful. I do too. And BirdLife South Africa is an optimistic, a positive organization, and we believe that there will be a future of birds. But it's going to take a lot of hard work and a lot of support from many people. Everybody can be involved in the important work of conserving South Africa's and the world's birds. So I'd like to encourage you to enjoy the African Bird Fair, listen to the presentations. If you haven't yet registered to attend the workshops and the two paid for presentations, please do so. Visit the exhibition booths, the sponsor booths, bid on the auction items, and have a great time. And give us some feedback as well. We'd like to hear from you after the Bird Fair, what you thought, rooms for improvement, suggested speakers, so we can improve on the Bird Fair in future. Thank you very much for attending this year's event. We're very, very privileged to have David Frost, the Chief Executive of the Southern African Tourism Services Association, join us virtually in a recorded presentation to talk about tourism in South Africa, and particularly the difficult 2.5 years that we've experienced during COVID and how we weathered that storm and the future we have for tourism post-COVID. David is currently in Cape Town, and with the problems around load shedding, we thought it best to have a pre-recorded presentation, and David very kindly accepted our invitation to present a talk. It's about 10 minutes long. I'd like to thank David for his time and for this wonderful presentation that he's given us. I'm going to play this pre-recorded presentation in a moment.
Good afternoon, everybody. Privileged to be chatting to you this afternoon. My name's David Frost. I'm the CEO of SATSA. We're the Inbound Tourism Association, and we're very proud and honored to have a partnership with BirdLife Africa. It's something we value, and it's a segment of the tourism market that we think has enormous potential and really has yet to, I think, see that full potential. But let me just say in opening a word or two about SATSA, because many of you probably won't know what SATSA is or what we do. So we've been in existence for 50 years, and we represent at the moment 1,400 companies on the inbound side of tourism. So we have about 500 inbound tour operators, or often called DMCs, destination management companies. We have all the big hotel groups, the smaller hotels, boutique hotels, all the game lodges, car rental companies, airlines that fly in South Africa and regionally, and adventure tourism operators. And we also represent the youth side of tourism. So collectively, as I say, around 1,400 members. And been in existence for 50 years. Originally, the mark of credibility. All our members have to submit on an annual basis financials, insurance compliance certificates, and operating permits. And this gives anybody that's dealing with a SATSA member the confidence that that company is at least credible. But what we really have sort of become known for over the last sort of 9 years is taking on the heavy lifting in terms of lobbying issues. So one of the key things as I took over at SATSA we were confronted with was the folly of unabridged birth certificates and Malusi Kigaba, and the total intransigence from government in terms of not sorting that out. It took 5 years to get that removed, and it cost us dearly. It cost us very, very necessary inbound tourism. And these are not only people who are coming on holiday, they were potential investors who were coming to invest that couldn't travel with kids. Absolute shocker. We've had ongoing visa issues. And I mean, just to put that into numbers for you, there's a clear example. Of the inbound tourism to South Africa, 78% comes from North America and Europe. And I'm talking now 2019 pre-COVID arrivals. We got 2.6 million arrivals in 2019 and 78% from North America and Europe. But the fastest growing markets internationally are China and India. But collectively, those two markets only account for 6%. And the Indian case is quite illustrative about this intransigence and the challenge we face from Home Affairs being user unfriendly. We started off playing in that market at around 2008. We had really good country managers from SA Tourism, and we grew the market around 20%, 25% per annum. So by 2012, we had got from 30,000 arrivals up to 96,000 arrivals from India. And our big international competitors, Australia, they kept pace with us. So they also started at around 30,000 arrivals 2008, and by 2012 they were slightly ahead of us. They had 120,000 arrivals. What then happens in the next 6 years, or 7 years, from 2012 to 2019, the Aussies get their visa regimes sorted out, and they go from 120,000 arrivals in 2012 to around 420,000 arrivals by 2019. Phenomenal growth. What do we do in the next 7 years? We go from 106,000 arrivals to 96,000 arrivals because we can't get visas processed. It's not because the Indians don't want to travel. It's because we can't get our act together. And this is part of what we do. And it's part of our lament is to get government to recognize the value of tourism and to support the sector. It's the one sector that can be supported to the hilt. It's also, I might add, the most competitive economic sector on the planet. It's the only sector where you compete against every other country. You don't do this when you're in the automobile game or if you're growing cashew nuts, whatever. You compete against a handful of countries that have the ability to compete in that particular economic sphere. So this is part of what we do. And then last year, our big challenge was not fighting our own government, but fighting the intransigence of the UK government and the red list, which was pernicious, unscientific, and dare I say, rather neo-colonial in its implementation. So we had to go and expose that. We did that and finally got the support of government and big business. And we got ourselves off the red list. But then, as we all know, we got put back on the red list, not only by the UK, but by a whole lot of other countries in the wake of unearthing Omicron and the good work that our scientists have done. So it's never a dull day in tourism. Current struggle is around getting tourism operating permits issued. And it's just a major state failure. We have 900 vehicles that can't be permitted. And getting tourists around the country, particularly in the size of a country like South Africa, is quintessential in tourism. So it's a small part of the chain, but the tourism is a chain. And if one link is not working, it bedevils the whole sector. But having said that, we have come through the dark days of being closed down on the inbound side. It was really useful that we got domestic tourism going. And it was, I think, a real wake up for everybody. I mean, there's a healthy outbound market out of South Africa, but these people weren't able to travel in COVID, and people got to discover their own country. And that domestic tourism sustained us. But many of my members play really squarely in that international market. So having international market open, we are seeing a strong recovery. We're seeing airlines coming back. So airlift is key in this respect. But the strongest growth is coming out of the US. But in the US market, we tend to play really in the top end. And these are people who are independent of means and mind. So they are not as spooked by some of the restrictions that were placed on travel during COVID. They are able to be more intrepid. And it's also, I might add, the high season for the US. They travel in our winter. Our traditional UK and European markets, the UK is our biggest market, travel from September through to March. That's the high season. But those markets, we have a strong three-star presence, a strong sort of mid-market. That segment of the market got severely spooked and scared through the fear-mongering and the way that the COVID pandemic was managed and messaged and handled in those source markets. So a real litmus test for us is September onwards. Will we see that market coming back? We're confident that we will. As SATSA, we are launching a private sector-led marketing initiative we're launching next week. We're hoping that within that, there will be a space for the birding segment, as there will be for the adventure segment, also a very untapped part of our tourism offer. So we're going to be launching a big campaign next week, and we'll be communicating that through BirdLife Africa as well, and hoping, as I say, that the birding segment can speak to that campaign, and it can help the birding tourism side. But in conclusion, we are incredibly fortunate. We value the partnership with BirdLife Africa. I must say, let me confess, I'm not a birder, but it is certainly an incredibly valuable and lucrative segment. And it's something that we want to publicize to and through our members. The 500 inbound tour operators I mentioned really act as product funnels, and they do a lot of the contracting, and they package on behalf of the international market. So there are obviously specific and niche operators that play in that market, but it's useful to be able to publicize these offerings and bring them into the sort of broader mainstream tourism sort of discourse. And that's something that we want to do and assist in terms of the partnership that we have with BirdLife Africa. So guys, I hope that has been vaguely informative. Just to let you know a little bit about what SATSA does and what's happening on the inbound side of tourism. But I wish you well in your event this afternoon, and just hope to continue the partnership and to interact with you and the members of BirdLife Africa going forward. Thank you very much for your time.
Okay, thanks very much, David, for that presentation. Really appreciate you joining us, albeit virtually. And just a couple of comments. I mean, one is that birding is a bit of an acquired hobby, I suppose. We'll get you to become a birder, David. Give us time with you in the field. Andrew de Block, Melissa Whitecross, and a few others, I think, take you out, and I think you'll be hooked after a day or a weekend away with some of our team. And I agree with you, David, that birding tourism is important. Bird watching is a very fast-growing pastime. I think in the US now it kind of matches golf and gardening as the three most popular pastimes. We're seeing a wonderful growth in birding in South Africa, particularly amongst young people, which is very encouraging. Department of Trade and Industry commissioned a study which was conducted by Dr. Jane Turpie, an environmental economist, about a decade ago, and she found that aviatourism in South Africa is worth more than R1 billion a year, R1 billion a year, and that has obviously grown significantly in the past decade. We believe that there's lots of potential to grow significantly more. And BirdLife South Africa plays in this space through various means. One of them is the training of community bird guides. We're very proud of that flagship project. We've trained over 200 community bird guides, and many of these are used by our birders and visitors from all over the world. And just to end off, I'd like to encourage you all to go to our website and click on the link to go to the Go Birding website. This is a fantastic initiative. I have to commend Andrew de Block and the team for undertaking this important work, and for David Chamberlain and his family and his company for sponsoring this work. It is really the one-stop shop for anybody who's interested in birding in South Africa. This birding sites, accommodation establishments, tour guides, You can zoom in, click on a link, go to a site, get information about that site, find out about what accommodation establishments you can stay at in those areas. These are birder-friendly establishments, and also which guides to use. This is a tremendous resource. It's going to grow with time, and we believe it's going to contribute significantly to growing AV tourism in our country, and also to attracting bird watchers from all around the world. So that is the end of my introduction. I'd like to again welcome you all to this year's African Bird Fair. Enjoy the next 24 hours or so, and thank you very much to everybody for participating. We're going to close for a short while. It gives you opportunity to go to our website, browse around, see what there is going on in the next day, and visit the auction page as well in particular, and look at some of the items that you can bid on. We'll be back at 6 o'clock for a session called Amusing Anecdotes from Across Africa. I encourage you to join that.